Hello and welcome to our channel.
Hello?
Today we're switching to a new format for our videos. From now on, we'll be doing case analyses that are common in daily life but aren't based on real events or cases. So today's story is this. We have a 35-year-old gentleman who runs his own company. From the outside, he appears quite strong and successful. His 2-year relationship ended last week. The person is very angry and in shock. The only sentence he told us was this: I gave my life to this relationship. I paid off his debts, I set up his business, but in return all I got was ingratitude. I was abandoned. Here you go, the file is on your desk. Why is this man who sacrificed everything so angry?
So anger has emerged during the grieving process. Is that the outcome?
Yes.
The person you mentioned is in the grieving process. But what I want to focus on here, frankly, is why anger has emerged during this process rather than sadness or a sense of emptiness. That part really caught my attention. You used a specific phrase. He invested too much in his lover or partner. Could that be the reason?
Ultimately, yes, I think so too. When we look at the file, we see that he often paid off debts without the other party even being aware of it. In fact, when his partner said, I can take care of myself, the client got upset.
Yes.
He even perceived it as an insult.
Yes. Okay, and he was describing him as ungrateful, wasn't he?
Uh-huh.
His partner, after the breakup, what's more, without being asked, he paid off his debts and things for him, almost to the point of invading his private space and made investments for him. Right? So now we can clearly see why anger emerged during the grieving process and why the partner who ended the relationship is being labeled as ungrateful. It's because he overinvested in the relationship, because he wanted to hold on to him. If you ask me, this person, he wanted the relationship to go well, to be happy. Look, what did you say at the beginning? I wanted everything to go well, so I did so many things for him. But he didn't stay, he just left. So doesn't that sort of become, a need to buy happiness? And what's the easiest tool at his disposal? Money. He's trying to do this with money. By the way, in relationships, we need to pay attention to this. We encounter situations like this frequently. If you ask me, this new concept is great, Yeshim, because when we talked about topics like the grieving process, being cheated on, cheating, attachment styles and so on, the subjects were a bit vague and up in the air. But with this format, with these videos, we can now explain things much more clearly. So let me begin my explanation. Investments made in relationships, whether material or emotional, that disrupt the give and take balance, create expectations in the one who makes the investment, in the giving party. For the person being invested in, as is the case here, when they are invested in against their will, it creates pressure. It amounts to an invasion of their private space. Underneath it all, the other person can be made to feel indebted. By the way, this applies to relationships that have the potential to be healthy. You wouldn't see this in purely opportunistic relationships. The one being invested in would be happy about it. Now, you should also review yourselves on this matter. If you're the one investing excessively in relationships to the point of disrupting the give and take balance, and the other person is very happy about it, we can say there's an opportunistic attitude at play. Frankly, you shouldn't feel too secure in those kinds of relationships. Now, these things can change from time to time. The give and take balances can change. Sometimes the weight is on one side, and the other side has to be the receiver. But when you look at the big picture, in the long run, the give and take balance is generally in equilibrium. That is, it continues on a healthy basis within the proper dynamics of the relationship. What the person did here, since the easiest thing at his disposal was money, was that he wanted to buy happiness and a peaceful relationship. But because he invaded the other person's private space, he likely made them feel indebted, emotionally indebted, or made them feel like he was interfering too much, and so that person probably ended the relationship. But now at this point, he's accusing him of ingratitude and is very angry. From this perspective, I think it's consistent. But here we also need to look a bit into the person's childhood, because we often learn these kinds of behaviors in our childhood. What do you think?
Yes, in fact, I should explain this. The childhood story is a classic picture of a parentified child.
Yes.
His mother was constantly unhappy and a victim, while his father was absent from the home. The person took on the duty of making his mother happy when he was just a child. Do you know when his mother would show him affection? Only when he solved a problem or was useful around the house.
Yes. And so over time, this person developed the belief that I am only valuable if I am useful. Yes. Now we can also see why this behavioral pattern emerged in the relationship. Of course, did you say he was 35?
Yes, 35.
If he is still continuing with this particular behavior pattern at the age of 35, we can assume that this method has been functional for him in his life so far. But can I say something? Now, I'd like our viewers to reflect on themselves. If you exhibit these kinds of behaviors, and despite having many people around you, you still feel even a little bit lonely, then you already need to change this attitude. Because these are actually topics that are intertwined with a lot of the content we've produced before. For example, the need to belong to a group or a community. If you can only feel like you belong to a group or community because of the tools and means you have, and you worry that when you don't have them, you'll be excluded and won't be able to be part of that group, then you're not actually being yourself when you're in that group. And in places where we can't belong, where we can't be ourselves, we don't feel safe at all. And we won't be satisfied by being in those places either. That's why it's important to be ourselves. But of course, as is the case here, or with this person, we learn most things in childhood. We especially model our parents. Now, the brain doesn't always choose what's good for it, but rather what works, what makes it feel safe. Consequently, this person probably developed a similar learning pattern. But in the long run, these kinds of learned things are pushed into the subconscious and they shape our behaviors. If you ask me, that's why this behavioral pattern emerged in the relationship. He thought that by behaving this way, he would be loved more, accepted more, and that he would feel safer. Now, I don't want to jump from topic to topic too much, but people who are givers or constructive like this are often doing it to feel safe or to satisfy an inner feeling. But they're often not very aware that they're doing it for that reason.
From the outside, it looks like they're surrounded by people, but in reality, they're all alone.
Yes.
Because deep down, he knows that the moment he stops giving, everyone will leave. That's why that crowd doesn't give him a sense of security, but rather fear.
Yes.
So what should this person do? Where should he start to break free from this exhausting cycle?
Of course, he needs to turn inward, to focus on himself. First, he must accept and love himself. These people develop a generalized anxiety, like, if I don't do this, I won't be loved. And, they might rationalize it by saying, well, people are just opportunistic anyway. Right? You only matter as long as you're useful to them. They might have also developed beliefs like, but you can still have a good time with them. But look, even in Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid, what's at the very top? Self-actualization and the need for transcendence. How are these processes built? Well, there are basic physiological needs, biological needs, belonging, loving, being loved, and so on. At the very top, there's self-respect, self-love, self-compassion. And after we've fulfilled these for ourselves, then the needs for transcendence emerge. In other words, the person has now completed themselves, and only then can they share their resources with others. This could be knowledge, it could be material resources, it could be improving existing processes or organizations by sharing their own experiences with them, and so on. But before all that, the person must first complete themselves. Actually, what do these kinds of painful processes often create in people? People are ungrateful. People can't be trusted. Now, in these kinds of traumatic events, this is a very shallow lesson to learn. We shouldn't trust other people more than we trust ourselves, right? We should trust ourselves more. We should. Now, we need to look at the situation from this perspective. I mean, every bad event, every pain we experience should teach us something. And the first thing this person needs to learn is, why do I invest so much in relationships? Apparently, this isn't the right way. If they don't stay in the relationship despite all my investment, then there must be a problem here. And I don't feel safe anyway. So where am I going wrong? He needs to look at that. The result will probably lead him back to himself. First, how can he feel safe? How can he be happy even when he's alone? He needs to discover these things about himself. After that, he needs to establish the right attitude in relationships. For example, instead of paying off his girlfriend's credit card debt without her even knowing, maybe he could have done this. I mean, asking, Are you having trouble paying this? It might have been more valuable for her. It would have made his girlfriend feel more understood, and maybe the relationship would have continued. Look, the person might be used to this, but it's not healthy.
Today we've had a very important realization. We've seen that what we sometimes think of as sacrifice is actually a price we pay to guarantee love.
Mm-hmm.
And without turning off that tap, we can never learn who truly loves us.
Yes.
So, dear viewers, now it's your turn. Who are you in your relationships? Are you that tired hero who gives everything and feels they get ingratitude in return? Or does this story sound all too familiar to you? Please write in the comments below. Let's break this cycle together. Don't forget, next week we'll talk about the other side of the coin, the one who leaves.
Right?
To not miss that video, let's not forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.
Yes. See ya.